Let me take you back to 2003 Champions League final, AC Milan versus Juventus. Powerhouses. Serie A was on top of the world. Serie A was the league where it was better than La Liga, it was better than the Premier League at this stage.
Wrong! This is an idea that is popular enough, wrong enough, and annoying enough when people use it in arguments that I really want to correct it.
Shevchenko won Serie A's Golden Boot with 24 goals, and Milan won the league, but Henry won the Prem undefeated with Arsenal and dropped 30 goals. Despite Serie A being the clearly better league at the time, you would think the undefeated record would help Henry out at least a little bit.
And honestly, I think that might be the most widely accepted, most fugazi myth in all of football. It's like a messed up game of Chinese whispers gone wrong, some Inception level stuff. I don't know, maybe some CIA ninjas implanted this in the dreams of millions of people, and we all just like accept and repeat it now. Yes, Serie A was dominant in the 90s, but in the 2000s, by any conventional measure, it was not the best league in the world, let alone, no, it wasn't dominant at all. Let's look at some numbers. Between 2000 and 2002, out of the 24 Champions League quarterfinal spots in that period, 9 of them were occupied by Spanish teams. English teams counted for 7, German teams 4, Italy 1. That's the same as Portugal, Greece, and Turkey. Now, to be clear, I'm not doing this to discredit any of the great players who played in Serie A in that era. Totti, I still think, is very underrated. Nesta is arguably the best centre-back of this century. Kaka, well, he came a bit later, but he has had an unreal peak. A great player or a great team can still be great, even if the league isn't absolutely the best. Robin, for instance, was incredible at Bayern, even if the Bundesliga wasn't, number 1. Yes, Italy did have Milan and Juve in the Champions League final in 03. Pointing to that as league dominance is a bit like pointing to the Bayern-Dortmund final in 2013. It's an exception rather than a trend. By 03-04, England already had the better UEFA coefficient, and remember that has lag because it's counting for the last 5 years. I think what has happened is, in that moment back then, Serie A still clung on to its 90s mystique. Too long, basically, especially in the eyes of some journalists. Let's recontextualize. There was just less access to global football back then. No highlights on YouTube, no social media. Reputations just tend to stick around longer. What's weird is that today, that myth didn't just survive over the years, it has grown. People now talk about 2000 Serie A like it was some golden era, more so than people did back then.
It's the meeting of Europe's Premier champions. Spain and England lead the way in the UEFA club rankings, and Valencia and Arsenal led the way in Spain and England last season.
At the moment, I believe it's the best place to be in European football. The Premiership is capable to dominate the European League, but Spain is still a strong opponent, and they look like they can. Two big teams can gather there all the money to build a big European team.
Among hardcore football fans, it was clear the league was starting to fall off a bit. And then the Calciopoli scandal hit and any illusion of dominance was shattered, even for the casuals. I think there's also a weird anti-Premier League contrarian attitude I've noticed recently. Look, maybe it's a somewhat fair reaction to Prem-tards, as people like to call it. Those annoying people who are like, oh, but has he done it in the Prem, though? I think it being English-speaking and also being so well-marketed and being so dominant in the media landscape annoys people. Or maybe they feel like they're being talked down to by English people, or there's an air of superiority about them. I don't know. I think that makes some people almost patronizingly overstate how good other leagues are or have been in the past. But what I've really noticed a lot is some people like to downplay how good the Premier League has been, especially at certain points in the past. The amount of times I've heard that the Premier League was trash in the 2000s is crazy, considering it was very good in the early part of the 2000s. It was undoubtedly a top 3 league and arguably the best.
I mean, you're right, Martin, it's what they say. People go on about, La Liga and Serie A. They couldn't cope with this type of pace in the game, and it's the quality that's in amongst the pace. I mean, some of the football, that there we've just seen, at that type of pace, you don't see that in those leagues.
Now, I'm not 100% co-signing what Andy Gray just said, but there were already valid reasons to rate the Premier League very highly in the early 2000s. But it's especially funny because of how absolutely dominant it was in the mid to late 2000s. There was an English team in every Champions League final in that 5-year span, and 4 different clubs as well. There was an all-English final in 2008, and 12 of the 20 semi-final spots in that period was taken by English teams. From 07 to 09, it was even more pronounced. 9 out of the 12 semi-final spots, English.
That Liverpool team under Rafa Benitez was in the top, I would say, 6 teams in Europe, maybe the top 5 teams in Europe. The only problem was 3 of them were in England. That was the problem. Yeah. So it was us,
United,
Chelsea. Arsenal. I mean, we were probably was an Arsenal pretty similar. And the other two European teams at the time were AC Milan and Barcelona.
Yeah.
Real Madrid were nowhere.
No.
Yeah,
Inter Milan were nowhere.
And that didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It had been coming, and really you could see it coming if you were astute. And a big reason why England were in the doldrums in the first place and had to claw their way back was because they were banned in Europe for like 5 years. And at the time of the ban in the mid-80s, it was rated as the strongest league, or certainly it was up there. And this is going to sound odd. I think weirdly, the English league does not get enough respect historically. What's a bit frustrating to me sometimes is how players from England are overhyped, especially in the moment. The English media for a lot of my life have just gone bonkers over some of their young players. I still remember Rooney had the highest rating in FIFA 07, like in the world. And look, Rooney was a monster's talent, and I'm not saying FIFA ratings mean much. I'm just using it as a proxy for like general or like casual sentiment. But I think a lot of this was just because of the hype around him. The media frenzy around Rooney Mania was crazy. Like, he was not the best player in the world at that point. So I think this overhyping is one end of the spectrum, but they also tend to be weirdly underrated in like historical discourse. Compare someone like Gerrard to a Modric or a Pirlo or a Seedorf or a Zidane. Those guys get near unanimous praise. And while Gerrard is obviously very highly rated, he low-key as well gets torn apart way more regularly for slipping, for not winning a league title, failures in the national team. There just seems to be less romance or like less mythologizing about English legends and Premier League legends in general. Okay, this is less fact-based and more vibes-based on my part, but I just feel like there's a certain shine that Serie A and La Liga legends get that Premier League legends don't quite get. Like, I saw a TikTok where someone made a combined Serie A Premier League 11. This got a lot of likes, and they only picked one Premier League player. You know, the player who conveniently did the vast majority of his best work elsewhere. And in almost every position, the guy said, there's no debate here. Or his alternatives would be other Serie A players.
Next to him, I'm going to put Serie. You could put Baresi. Striker, I'm going Ronaldo Phenomenal. You could put Del Piero, Totti, Van Basten, of course. But for me, Ronaldo Phenomenal is the best striker of all time.
And stuff like that just makes me confused. Like, how can that be? Van Dijk doesn't have a shout for centre-back? Not even a shout. Like somehow, the Premier League just stumbled into all the success without having any of the best players, I guess. De Bruyne? Yeah, who's that guy? Definitely not one of the most special midfield talents you'll ever see. In conclusion, Serie A in the 2000s was very strong, but it wasn't the best league in the world, not at any point in that period, and it certainly was not dominant. And I don't think people today realize how quickly it was falling behind as well, especially entertainment-wise and pace-wise.
Against AC Milan, that was the first time I played against an Italian team, or the only time I ever played against an Italian team where it felt like I was playing against Arsenal or something like that, where it was just like, oh, fast. Yeah. Sometimes, I mean, this might sound mad, when we played Inter Milan 2 or 3 years later, it was one of the easiest games I've ever had.
Really, yeah.
And they've got like some great players. We played the San Siro, we played them at home. I'm not saying it in like a cocky way, it was easy.
Yeah.
You know, it was just like the Premier League, the intensity of the Premier League was that fast. It felt like a stroll.
And weirdly, its reputation has only grown since then, while the actual evidence tells you a different story. And somewhat relatedly, I think a lot of English league legends are just generally a bit underrated. I think the German league may face similar issues. No one talks about Ballack these days. I've always felt Robin is a bit underrated. Yeah, I think there are interesting cultural reasons maybe as to why. Yeah, maybe something I can expand on later. Alright, let me know your thoughts. Just please don't get all up in your feelings and make a stupid argument like, oh, you have to be 75 million years old to have a say on these matters. You needed to have watched every single game of Maldini's career live to have an opinion on Italian football. Those are the worst comments because it's like I very clearly know kind of what I'm talking about. I probably watched way more than you have of that period. All right, bye-bye.